Well, there's no denying financial stress on farms is growing. Soybean prices sunk to the lowest level in 5 years earlier this week. As soybeans search for a demand story, are there some positive stories on the horizon that could turn soybean prices around heading into next year? That's this week's Farm Journal report. Growing soybeans in Ohio this year has been a bit of a roller coaster ride.
We faced some wet weather, especially in the month of May, cold and wet.
North Central Ohio farmer Steve Reinhardt says they never had excessive rains, but enough that it did delay planting.
But at the end of May, we got in and finished up the corn and soybeans, and things really look pretty decent right now.
While farmers like Reinhardt are focused on big yields today, U.S. soybean farmers are wading through a number of challenges this year. $10 soybeans aren't the price picture farmers want to see, and the increased tariffs are hanging over the export outlook, which is huge considering about half of the soybeans you see growing across the U.S. will be exported.
Soybeans are still U.S. Ag's number one export industry at about $31 billion, providing, back to the economy. So definitely a market we're looking at, but also trying to stress more domestic use as well.
Not losing sight of growing exports while drumming up even more domestic demand is a focus for the United Soybean Board at a critical time.
I think the big one we can look at is feed use in the United States. We look at the increased demand for soybean oil. When we crush the soybean, we get oil, we get meal. So we need to look at how can we put more meal into the animal agriculture industry.
From poultry to pork, animal agriculture is the largest end user of soybeans, with livestock consuming 97% of the soybean meal produced here.
We're looking at for instance, in the pork diet, we're providing antiviral and anti-inflammatory benefits to those younger pigs. We're able to help with respiratory diseases, as well as improving summer health of the animals, especially under the severe heat stress.
United Soybean Board has its sights set on recouping some demand through the livestock market, and one area of growth gaining traction is in dairies.
One of the things when we came up with the high oleic soybean is we were looking at the human health aspects, no trans fat, no saturated fat, great for cooking and the human health aspect. What we didn't intend is actually how that benefits the dairy industry. And it provides a really improvement on milk fat yield. And that's, one of the components that the dairy industry gets paid on. So that's really been a benefit there. And we hope to expand that market as well.
So, do you think we're just starting to scratch the surface on high oleic soybeans and really what they can do?
Yeah, I think we're starting to scratch the surface. And we know that there's some things that high oleic can't do that conventional soy can. It is a little bit different oil composition.
Finding new domestic uses for American-grown soybeans is something that gives this Ohio farmer hope. But what is he most excited about? It's the possible boost in biofuels.
I think that's going to continue to drive that demand for oil, but then that comes up with what do you do with the meal?
EPA set the stage for a big boost to biofuels in June. That's when the agency released its proposed blending mandates for biomass-based diesel in the renewable fuel standard. The proposal would increase biomass-based diesel requirements from 3.25 billion gallons in 2025 to 5.61 billion gallons in 2026. And if made final, it would be a potential game changer for farmers.
Everybody's going to be very happy with the fact that we're going to increase the proposed volume requirement by 67% to 5.61 billion gallons. And now the question is, does that mean we're going to have to use every pound of soybean oil towards renewable, or every available pound of soybean oil? It certainly will be.
Another big component of the proposed rule is the fact EPA also wants to restrict the amount of imported foreign feedstocks used in renewable fuel production here. According to Terrain's Mark Rosenbaum, that would put U.S. production of renewable fuels made from U.S. feedstocks like soybeans at a significant advantage.
Getting that finalized first, I think, will be important for knowing exactly what level of soybean oil we need.
USDA acknowledging that potential growth in the July WASDE report just last week, forecasting a record 53% of soybean oil usage in the U.S. will go to biofuels.
They brought up biofuel use of soybean oil to 15.5 billion pounds, which now exceeds the food consumption category, which I think is an important psychological piece of it.
For Ag Resource Dan Bossi, it's the boost in biofuels that would fuel the demand story in soybeans, especially if exports continue to navigate tariff threats and uncertainty on trade.
I believe that we need to continue to think about the future opportunities in green fuels and build out that sector.
Bossy says whether it's here at home or growing demand for green fuels in other countries, the demand is needed for soybeans.
My mindset is looking outside the United States, there's still tremendous growth in green fuels. Is the United States here as we look at different blend opportunities and different things with ethanol and renewable diesel, and is there opportunity there really to go forward? So I think that's the key as we think about the future opportunities in agriculture.
We talked to United Soybean Board. Of course, they're not losing focus on export demand. They're trying to build those export markets, but they're also working on new uses of soybeans here domestically. That is a major focus for them. If we can find new demand, if we can find new uses for soybeans, like high oleic and dairy rations and things like that, will that help? Will that help the soybean demand story?
It would absolutely help the demand story, and to the extent that those products receive premium prices, it's going to help those producers most likely that produce those crops for those needs.
For Ohio farmer Steve Reinhard, it's not whether the soybean industry should focus on growing domestic demand or growing exports. It's an unwavering focus on both that will drive prices and demand.
You have an administration now that's working with different countries to provide, different trading opportunities. And I think as we go forward, I think we continue to see our yields increase over time. I don't see our production going down or being stagnant. So I think that we still need to continue to work on all of our markets and continue to be able to use the great production and ingenuity that the U.S. farmer brings forward.
Well, there were new tariff threats from President Trump that happened this week. We have details in Ag Around the World next.